Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Today you will see 4 reconstructed accidents based on real events. We have recreated these moments in detail so that you can see how everything happened. So sit back, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes, and we're off. Chapter 1. The moment that changed everything. That evening, as the sun was already touching the horizon, traffic on a highway near Spokane, Washington, was backed up. The 2-lane road was filled with cars, a typical evening traffic jam. Everyone was moving slowly, keeping their distance, not realizing that the situation would change dramatically in a few seconds. In the traffic flow were a gray Honda, which was driving first in the lane, followed by a black Nissan, and a white Ford behind it. When a large truck approached from behind, it was driven by 67-year-old Harold Blake. He was an experienced driver who had spent most of his life behind the wheel and had never been in a serious accident before. Harold was driving in his usual manner, steady, focused, and without any sudden movements. But something suddenly went wrong. His eyes darkened, the left side of his body went numb, and his fingers on the steering wheel lost their strength. His heart clenched in his chest and his body became uncontrollable. He didn't even have time to realize what was happening. The stroke hit him suddenly and ruthlessly. The truck continued to drive straight into the traffic jam. Without any reaction, without trying to slow down, it was approaching the cars. The Honda, which was in front, literally jumped from the force of the collision, and the driver was very lucky and was thrown to the side, where he later stopped on the side of the road, suffering almost no damage or injury. But the worst thing happened to the black Nissan, which was second in line. It was sandwiched between Harold's truck and another large truck in front of it. The mass of steel literally squeezed the SUV between the two multi-ton vehicles. The driver had no chance of survival. Eventually, Harold's truck came to a stop when it slammed into the front truck. The drivers who witnessed the tragedy ran out of their cars to help the victims. The driver of the Ford, although injured, survived and was able to get out of the car on his own. He was saved by airbags. But it took rescuers 40 minutes to reach the Nissan, which was trapped. When the medics finally opened the truck door, Harold could not say anything. His eyes were filled with surprise and fear. He did not understand what had happened. He just felt that his body was no longer obeying him. The doctors diagnosed him with a stroke. He survived, but it is unlikely that he will ever drive again. This accident was a frightening reminder that even the most experienced drivers can find themselves in a situation that is impossible to predict. Chapter 2. The maneuver that ruined. The second accident of the day took place in Springfield, Illinois. On that sunny day, when the city was going about its normal business, traffic in the center was dense but steady. Drivers were following the rules, and nothing seemed to portend trouble. An old white Ford Fiesta, driven by 50-year-old George, was in the center lane, driving at a moderate speed. The cars around him were moving at a normal pace. George was an experienced driver who always kept his eyes on the road. Everything seemed calm until an orange Volkswagen Golf driven by 23-year-old Emma, started moving strangely in the next lane to the right, slowing down and then accelerating sharply. Emma, who had only recently gotten her driver's license, looked unsure of herself behind the wheel. She tried to adapt to the intense city traffic, but she lacked experience. At one point, she became distracted and jerked the steering wheel to the left in an attempt to change lanes. This maneuver was fatal. The Golf crashed with all its might into the right side of a Ford Fiesta that was moving in the next lane. The impact was so strong that George lost control of the car. The Fiesta was thrown sharply to the left, directly into the oncoming lane. A black Lexus GX, driven by 42-year-old businessman Adam, was moving in the oncoming lane. He saw the Ford swiftly swerve into his lane, but there was no way to avoid the collision. The frontal impact was terrible. The Fiesta jumped up from the impact, and the Lexus stopped abruptly, leaving tire marks on the asphalt. Witnesses immediately called rescuers and an ambulance. George was unconscious, but they managed to pull him out of the car. Adam, although he was hit, was able to get out of his Lexus on his own. But Emma, seeing the consequences of her maneuver, fled the scene in a panic. She left her car in a nearby parking lot and walked home, trying to avoid responsibility. Rescuers arrived on time, and doctors did everything they could to stabilize George and Adam. They were taken to the hospital, where their lives were saved. Police investigating the accident quickly determined that the Volkswagen Golf was the vehicle that caused the incident. A few hours later, Emma was found. She was charged with attempting to flee the scene and creating a dangerous situation on the road. Chapter 3: Mistake at Speed. The third story for today took place on a clear afternoon, a highway in the middle of a dense forest in the Moscow region of Russia, and it seemed like the perfect place to drive. The road was calm, the cars were moving at their usual pace, and a light breeze was dispersing the summer heat. A black Lada Priora, driven by 27-year-old Vladislav, was driving along the highway, trying to keep his speed above the traffic. He was in a hurry, even though no one was waiting for him. His impatience began to grow when he saw a Chevrolet Niva slowly moving in front of him. Vlad, who did not like to waste time, decided to overtake it. Overtaking on the left was impossible. The oncoming lane was not free. But there was a roadside on the right, and he thought that was enough room to maneuver. Vlad didn't even think that the roadside was covered with fine gravel, which could have made the maneuver deadly. He stepped on the gas and jumped sharply to the right. At first, everything went according to plan. The Lada overtook the Chevrolet, but when it came time to get back on the track, the situation instantly got out of hand. The car lost traction, and it skidded sharply. The Lada rushed to the left, crossing all lanes, and ended up directly on the oncoming course. At that moment, a Peugeot 107, driven by 33-year-old Irina, was coming toward them. She noticed the black car rushing uncontrollably toward her and tried to slow down, but at that speed it was impossible to avoid a collision. The next seconds turned into a nightmare. The Lada crashed into the driver's side of the Peugeot at full speed, and the strong impact made the two cars seem to be glued together. Witnesses of the accident immediately called the rescuers. They found Irina in the Peugeot in a state of shock, but she miraculously survived. They took her out of the car and immediately handed her over to doctors. The driver of the Lada also survived, but his condition was critical. The rescuers pulled him out of the car and he was taken to the hospital. Chapter 4: Fatal Route. Tragedy on the Highway. The fourth story for today took place on a highway near the town of Greenfield, Indiana, and the road was quite busy. A huge truck was traveling in the far right lane at a steady speed. Its driver, 45-year-old Frank Wilson, was keeping his eyes on the road. Driving a truck was his daily job, and he knew how important it was to control such a huge machine. But that night, things didn't go according to plan. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. The front tire of the truck burst right on the highway. The car began to sway uncontrollably, and the steering wheel in Frank's hands felt like it was unsteady. He tried to steady the truck, but it was too late. The truck veered to the left. A white Mercedes-Benz CLS was driving in the next lane. The truck hit the side of his car. The impact was severe, but the bulk of it fell on the back seat, on the side, which gave the driver a chance to react quickly and try to escape. However, a tragic fate awaited the driver of the Hyundai taxi, which was moving in the far left lane. The impact threw the Mercedes onto the taxi, and the truck, without losing speed, also hit the Hyundai, pinning it between itself and the road barrier. All these events unfolded in seconds, but the consequences were fatal. The Hyundai was badly crumpled. The taxi driver, 38-year-old Thomas Rogers, had no chance of survival. The impact was so strong that the cab crumpled instantly. Meanwhile, the driver of the Mercedes miraculously managed to swerve and avoid more serious damage. Frank, the truck driver, suffered a terrible shock, but only a few bruises and scratches. He sat in the cab, unable to believe what had happened. Eyewitnesses who witnessed the tragedy rushed to his aid, but it was too late for the taxi driver. I hope you were interested in seeing these reconstructed events. If you liked it, write your opinion in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. See you in the next episodes. See you soon.